And this story, I'm going to say I heard about 40 years ago. And this was back in my theater days, heard about a young playwright. And he's trying to get his big break in New York. And he's out at a restaurant and he sees one of the top producers in New York. The playwright knows this is his one chance to pitch his speech, to pitch his idea. And so he comes running on up to the table and he goes, "Excuse me, I really admire your work. I just have to introduce myself and tell you about something." And then he begins going into a description of the play that he wants to produce and what's needed and how it would be done and everything. The producer, who's been on Broadway for a while and has probably heard this many times, patient for the first minute or so. But as the playwright goes on and on, the producer reaches across the table and from the ashtray on the table, pulls out a matchbook, holds up his hand. Got to stop there. See here, this matchbook? If you can't write your idea on the inside of this matchbook, you don't have a clear idea. Toastmasters guests, that has proven so true in my life. If you don't have a clear idea, if you can't write on the inside of a matchbook, it isn't a clear idea. And there's so much to get out of this story, but I'm going to focus on one thing that I was asked to focus on: presentation and performance. But really, I'm going to be talking about style, your style. And that's what Toastmasters can teach you. Okay, the playwright had his style in there. And that was to just come out and gush about, we talked about being enthusiastic about your product, really loving what you do. Even con men, especially con men, love their product and can talk about it for hours. They're enthusiastic about it. But that's something you need, because if you're not sold on it, then no one else is going to want to buy it. But second, I'm going to come down to the producer's response. Even though his response was brief, he had everything in there. He had his own style. He had a prop. Okay, nowadays we use PowerPoint, but I don't think he had time to prepare a PowerPoint. But he had a prop, and he expressed himself clearly. If you can't write it on the inside of a matchbook, you don't have a clear idea. Now, if I was going to talk about my presentation style, it would be terrible for you. That's right, because I enjoy so many things: singing, dancing, reading stories. That isn't you. And that's what Toastmasters can teach you. I'm going to say a couple things. That number one, don't copy me. You need to find your own style. I once saw a fellow at Toastmasters give a speech as a magician, and he gave it in Spanish, and everyone in the room understood his speech. That was his style. I can't do magic. I can't speak well in Spanish. It would be terrible if I tried that. It'd be terrible if most of you tried it. But that was his style. That's the first thing. You can discover your style. And I'm going to use the word discover because I can't teach you anything, but you can discover things about yourself. Number two, this is a terrible thing to learn, but learn what doesn't work. Toastmasters is a place you can make mistakes. And even better, sometimes you can learn from other people's mistakes. I have seen and heard speeches. There's one in particular back from the 80s that still haunts me and gives me nightmares. But you can learn what doesn't work in a speech, and you can do it safely. And I was joking a bit about Mark's feedback, but things like that are so good and appreciative if somebody can honestly tell you, this worked, this didn't. That you can't get in the business world, you can't get from your coworkers, you can't get from your customers. Third thing, and this is also from the speech, is how to speak clearly. Table topics, even this small 3 to 5, 4 to 6, 5 to 7 minute speech forces you to get to the point. And I'm sorry, sometimes we ramble. Have you ever listened to the president's State of the Union address? He's required to give it. It's in the Constitution that once a year, stand before Congress, give a State of the Union address. I've listened to those, and a lot of times it seems more like, as a listener, you're in a hostage situation. They don't get to the point. They're going on, and you really would wish they'd say something that you could listen to. And so that's it. Get to the point, and you can learn that in Toastmasters, not because you want to, because we force you to. As I'm now being forced with the yellow signal being given by Karen. Thank you, Karen. I do need that. So 3 things, and please remember them. Don't copy. Learn your own style. Number 2, steal from others or learn what doesn't work. Okay, Jerry didn't say steal. He said, transferable skills. Steal from others. And 3, you're going to learn to be clear and put your ideas on the inside of a matchbook. Mr. Toastmaster.